But first, let me catch you up with events in Canberra today. Politicians began the day in church, which was appropriate because, well, God knows they need help. Or is it the public that needs divine intervention? I think at this stage we can agree we all need a miracle. The way people approach church is, to me, always revealing. Even before the St Paul's Anglican Service Nationals leader, David Littleproud, well, he was telling the media that he was sinless.
Were you hoping for forgiveness in there today?
Nothing to be forgiven for.
Nationals MP Matt Canavan said he would be looking for divine intervention.
Praying for anything today?
Morning. Yeah, say some prayers.
While Liberal MP Tim Wilson was promising to impress upon the good Lord the urgency of the Coalition's dire situation.
Deliverance.
Now, by contrast, the Prime Minister told journalists he'd be talking to Jesus about other matters entirely.
Praying for a Rabbitohs victory?
I've got great escort, always praying.
I'll talk about Labor arrogance in a moment, but what do you make of a PM who twice chooses to reject the Bible when being sworn in as PM while still expecting Jesus to help out his footy team? We'll see whether heaven smiles on South Sydney, but I can tell you this much. The Liberal and National parties received no divine intervention whatsoever because the moment church wrapped up, everything went straight to hell. When Parliament resumed at 2 p.m, Susan Lee and David Littleproud still hadn't agreed on how to stitch the coalition back together. This after a long meeting the night before designed to clear the air, which mostly seems to have cleared the exits. Remember, Littleproud had previously sworn there would be no reunification while Susan Lee remained Liberal leader.
We cannot be part, our party room has made it very clear, we cannot be part of a shadow ministry under Susan Lee. No one in our ministry could work in a Susan Lee ministry, and my party room made that clear, and that's why the coalition was made untenable.
Well, he's since walked that back after it became evident that neither Angus Taylor nor Andrew Hastie were about to oust the woman who defended the Nats by expelling 3 of them from the front bench for voting against hate speech laws.
No, I said we couldn't work with Susan unless our 3 were reinstated. We've been very clear about that. We've been consistent about that. We can work with anybody in the Liberal Party, but we were aggrieved with the fact of something as serious as hate speech laws that we weren't afforded the ability to make our own minds up.
OK then. Well, last night Susan Lee offered to reinstate them after they'd served a 6-month suspension for voting against the coalition. It was the old give a little, take a little tactic. Susan Lee proves herself strong by suspending the Nats, who failed to support her shadow cabinet position, and David Littleproud can have Bridget McKenzie, Ross Cadell and Susan McDonald back on the shadow bench around July. So everybody loses and everybody wins. Of course, it didn't help that the Liberals' offer was leaked to the media before most Nationals had even heard about it, which prompted this rebuke from St David Littleproud, who said, and I quote, "We won't be providing updates on any negotiations through the media." Well, leaks aside, David Littleproud said he would consider the offer. Kind of like I'm considering holidaying next year in the US or maybe in Europe. Then again, I might just stay home. And then out of nowhere, Nationals MP Lou O'Brien suddenly announced he'd quit the Nationals altogether if they rejoined the coalition without a commitment to repeal the government's hate speech laws. Laws the Liberals voted for just over a week ago. I can't see Susan Lee agreeing to that. Can you? Which begs the question, where would Lou O'Brien go? Which brings us nicely to One Nation. Pauline Hanson was missing from the federal parliament today. It's not that she didn't want to be there, it's just that she's currently, like 3 Nat members, suspended. She's suspended from parliament for a dress code violation last year. Now, Hanson used her free time today to announce that former Liberal Senator Cory Bernardi was the latest high-profile name to join One Nation. Bernardi's pitch, I think, will resonate with a lot of people.
Without a viable third force in this country, we will be left to the mercies of the 2 parties who are undeserving of your confidence and your faith.
Meanwhile, back in Canberra, a Nationals MP was anonymously telling The Australian that it was a hard no to Susan Lee's offer, describing it as offensive. So much for David Littleproud's boast that the Nats wouldn't engage in negotiation via the media. So all of this leaves Labor free to continue dismantling the country without any meaningful opposition. And the hubris today, well, it was something to behold. Interest rates went up this afternoon, and Jim Chalmers, with a straight face, blamed the opposition for wanting a rate rise.
They desperately want an interest rate rise today. They desperately want some bad economic news because they want Australians to be under pressure because they think that helps them politically.
So the rate rise was the coalition's fault. They willed interest rates up for their own brazen political purposes, a kind of monetary telekinesis. But I guess when the PM is doing Married at First Sight gags, well, everyone on the Labor side fancies themselves as Seinfeld. Check out the PM's performance in Parliament today. Now, time had been called on Susan Lee after she spoke at length about how the rate rise would add $100 a month to the average home loan. And this was the PM's response.
I do encourage my people to not yell out time. There's enough behind her doing that at the moment.
Well, that got her good, didn't it? Hang on a second. Wasn't it just the other day that Anthony Albanese was accusing Angus Taylor and Andrew Hastie of misogyny for picking on Susan Lee, a woman? The problem with hubris is that it's highly contagious. Have a listen to federal Labor Senator Nita Green today, calling the coalition a bunch of cookers.
No matter what happens today, the Nats are full of cookers and the Libs are cooked.
Nice line, just one problem. When people hear this about the politicians they voted for, they tend to hear it directed at themselves. Nita Green's comment had more of a whiff of Hillary Clinton about it.
You could put half of Trump supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables. Right?
And we all remember how that ended. I'm old enough to remember when Anthony Albanese promised us his government was going to be characterised by respect and civility. And judging by the latest polls that have the government's primary vote hovering around 30%, I'd be careful dancing on the coalition's grave just in case they slip. By the way, how does calling country people cookers help with Labor's social cohesion project? They're supposed to govern for everyone, yet throw around derogatory terms for opponents and their supporters, all the while rolling out hate speech laws because language matters. When the interest rate rise came through, Jim Chalmers had this to say in Parliament.
This side of the House is focused on the cost of living challenge. That side of the House is focused on who sits where from one week to the next. We won't be distracted by opposition parties which are divided, divisive and in disarray.
I love how he claims to be focused on helping Australians. We won't be distracted by opposition parties. And then to prove that he's not distracted by opposition parties, he rolls out adjectives to describe opposition parties: divided, divisive and in disarray. Which makes you wonder if someone spent more time working on their alliteration than on their economic policy. I think we all know the answer to that. To give him his due as a comedian, not as a treasurer, this one was actually pretty good.
I thank the Shadow Treasurer, Mr Speaker, who is also now, I'm told, the Shadow Assistant Treasurer. They found the only bloke over there who could work with him, Mr Speaker, and they're still not convinced there won't be leaking of private conversations.
I'm glad Labor and Liberal MPs find the current state of political representation in this country funny. As that great political commentator William Shakespeare once said, a pox on both their houses.